السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. ثم أما بعد، يا إخوة الكرام حفظكم الله. We continue going over the small yet tremendous book by the Imam, the Mujaddid, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah ta'ala. That book in which the Imam, rahmatullah alayh, he brings the conditions, the shurut for the salah, as well as the arkan for the salah wa wajibatuha, and the obligatory matters of the salah, of the prayer. Alhamdulillah, we were able to go over the first couple of conditions of the salah. The first being al-Islam, and then the second being al-Aql, which brings us to the third condition, and that is at-tamyiz. The third condition, it is at-tamyiz. The Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, الثالث, thirdly, or third, التمييز وضده الصغر. التمييز, and the opposite of it, is to be small in age. So what is intended by a tamyiz, and if we contemplate on the first as a side point, if we were to contemplate on the first couple of conditions, we will find that the Imam, the Mujaddid, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions what the condition is, and then he mentions its opposite. So for example, the Imam, rahmatullah alayhi, he said, al-Islam wa ضده al-Kufr. Al-Islam, and the opposite of it is kufr. For the second condition, the Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, Al-Aql wa ضده al-Junun. Intellect, and the opposite of it is insanity. And here, likewise, the Imam, he says, At-Tamyiz wa ضده al-Sighar. وضده الصغر. And this is something that is important that you find the ulama, they do, and when they define certain terms, they will bring the opposite so as to increase in their understanding. Because only by way of the opposites are things distinguishable and are we better able to know what is intended by them. So the Imam rahmatullah alayhi, he says at-tamyiz وضده الصغر. At-tamyiz being of a proper age or a necessary age for the salah, and the opposite of it is to be small in age or to be younger than that age of distinction. Now, and the reason for it, as we will come to see, is because it is linked to the second condition, and that second condition is a condition of aql, is a condition of intellect, that a person is intellectually mature enough to perform the salah. So intellectual maturity is incumbent and vital for the performing of the salah. So therefore, at 10 years, this age of distinction, by way in which is the age in which a person will be intellectually mature enough for the salah, is a condition for the salah. So the Imam, he says, وَحَدُّهُ سَبْعُ سِنِينَ, and the limit of it, right, or what is that age of distinction or tamyiz, then that will be 7 years of age. That will be 7 years old. Now, ثُمَّ يُؤْمَرُ بِالصَّلَاةِ. So when they're 7 years of age, then we should encourage our children to pray. Now, when they're 7 years of age, we should, the Shaykh, he says, the Imam, he says, يُؤْمَرُ, then we would command our children to pray. And we'll come to understand exactly what is intended by the word yu'maru, that we would command our children to pray when they reach 7 years of age. And this is according لقوله sallallahu alayhi wasallam, according to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, مُرُّوا أَبْنَاءَكُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ لِلسَّبْعِ وَاضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا لِعَشْرٍ وَفَرِّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in this hadith, and command your children to pray when they are 7, and beat them with regards to the prayer when they are 10, and separate their beds. At that age of 10, we will have to separate the beds, meaning that everyone should have his own bed where he sleeps. He should have his own sleeping area, and it should not be shared with his brothers and sisters and so on and so forth, but they should have their own area designated for them to sleep. Now, they should have their own area that's designated for them to sleep. This hadith is a hadith that is sahih. هو hadithun sahih. This hadith is authentic. Naam. And it has been collected by Imam Ahmad wa Abu Dawood, Imam Abu Dawood. And it's from the hadith of Abdullah bin Amr radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. And it's also been collected by Imam Abu Dawood min hadith Sabrah bin Ma'bad al-Juhani, from another narrator, been collected by Abu Dawood. And for more on this, an individual, he could refer to Irwa al-Ghalil. Ala kulli hal, this hadith is a hadith that is authentic. It is a hadith that is authentic. The great Allama Muhammad Aman al-Jami, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, as-saghir, the one who is small, alladhi duna sab'a la ya'qul. He said that the one who is small, he's under 7, then he won't have the, for lack of a better term and or translation, he won't have the intellectual maturity. He won't have the intellectual maturity for the salah. نعم. ولذلك أمرنا أن نؤمر أولادنا بالصلاة للسبع. He said, and for this reason we have been commanded to order our children to pray when they are 7. We have been commanded to order our children to pray when they are 7. لأنهم قبل ذلك لا يعقلون. Because before this they don't have the intellectual maturity. Before this they don't have the intellectual maturity. Naam. And for parents, for the fathers and the mothers, they know this to be the case. How many of the children, and we mean in general, you always have your exceptions to the rule. Naam. But in general, you'll find that children under this age, many of them don't even have the wherewithal to be able to stand for full prayer. They don't have even the wherewithal to stand there and the discipline to stand there for a full, complete prayer. But they'll leave some time doing the prayer and so on and so forth because they're at an age where they're not intellectually mature enough to do what is required as it relates to the prayer. فَحَدُّهُ سَبْعُ سِنِينَ. So the limit of this age of intellectual maturity, then it will be 7 years of age. ثُمَّ يُؤْمَرُ بِالصَّلَاةِ. And then at this time we will command them to make the prayer. لِقَوْلِهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. According to the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, مُرُّوا أَبْنَاءَكُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ لِلسَّبْعِ وَاضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا لِلْعَشْرِ وَفَرِّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. That command your children to pray when they are 7, and beat them as with regards to it when they are 10, and separate their sleeping quarters, separate their beds. هذه أداب إسلامية. The Shaykh, he says, this is the Islamic mannerisms. This is the Islamic mannerisms. ينبغي التقيد بها, that we have to stick to it. This is the way that as Muslims we are to rear our children. As you find in the West, وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, many of the parents, and in particular the mothers, they baby their children and they spoil them beyond what is due, and they take it too far. So a child can be 7 years of age and they're being treated as if they are 4, or treated as if that they're 3, always just a little baby. And even the terminology and terms in which are used are inappropriate, because this may have an adverse effect upon the psyche of that particular child. When you keep calling him a baby, such a "there's my baby," and "there's a baby," and "there's a baby," and "there's a baby," and then we get upset when they act like a baby and he's 8 years old, 7 years old, and so on and so forth. Now, but we are to be able to identify their intellectual capacity and then deal with them as such. Now, we're not saying that we treat them like grown men. We're not saying that we treat them like adults and so on and so forth, because that too will not be appropriate. That will be going too far in the other direction. But we are to treat them age appropriately. Now, we are to treat them in a manner that is age appropriate, and speak to them in a manner that is age appropriate, and to not underestimate their ability and their capacity, but to deal with them appropriately. Bithnillahi ta'ala. The great Allama, Shaykh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, Hafidhullah ta'ala, he explains what is meant by command your children to pray. He explains what is meant, because an individual, he may think by this that command the children to pray means that they have to pray every single prayer, and they have to pray and it becomes wajib upon them, like it's wajib upon one who has reached the age of maturity, one who has reached the age of puberty. Now, the Shaykh, he says, إذا بلغ الصغير سنين التمييز وهو 7 سنين أمر بالصلاة. He said, when a small child reaches the age of distinction, and that will be 7 years of age, then at that point they're commanded to pray. Now, they're commanded to pray. But then the Shaykh, he explains, he says, وَلَيْسَ عَلَى سَبِيلِ الْإِجَابِ. He said, but it's not, we're commanding them to pray upon the way of that it is obligatory for them. So we're not to be overboard upon the children and command them to pray as if it is obligatory for them to pray. The Shaykh, he says, لِأَنَّ الْوُجُوبِ إِنَّمَا يَكُونُ بَعْدَ الْبُلُوغِ. He said, because the obligation for them to pray, then this will come after they reach the age of puberty. This will come after puberty, or on the onset of puberty. Then at that point, then they will be, they have to pray. At that point, they have to pray, and there's no doubt about that. Now, وَأَمْرَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَأَمْرُهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ, and ordering him to pray. And if you have this sineen at this time, لِيَتَعَوَّدُ عَلَى الصَّلَاةِ نعم وَإِتْيَانْ بِهَا عَلَى وَجْهِ الْمَشْرُوعِ. At this time, and this is very important, and it's related to the salah, but in the rearing of our children in general that we have to have in our minds. Na'am. The Shaykh, he says, ordering them and commanding him to pray at this age, it is in order to acclimate him to the prayer, or to acclimate her to the prayer. It's in order so that they could perform the prayer upon the legislative manner. So what this means is that at the end, as Sheikh Muhammad Aman, he's going to touch upon, is that when they reach this age, this is the age that we should begin to teach them exactly how to pray, exactly what to say, what are the movements, so on and so forth. Now, at this age, we begin to teach them. But it is so as to begin their training, so as to begin their lesson, so as to begin the focus on the salah, and to acclimate them to praying, so that by the time that it is wajib upon them to pray, and they have to pray, and it's mandatory upon them to pray, they have already been acclimated into praying, and they're used to praying. So it's an easy transition. So you have that buffer period from the time that they're 7 until the time where they are 10 years of age, because at 10 we are to beat them over the prayer, and then from that time to the time wherever they go into the age of puberty, that they have a buffer, and then another period between the buffer period and between the period in which that is obligatory, mandatory for them to pray, so as to acclimate them on the prayer. And this is something that is of extreme importance, and this is across the board. We should be acclimating our children upon the Islamic mannerisms from when they are little, so that we're training them, not that we leave them and we're neglectful of them, so that they do what they want, how they want, when they want, and they have no no cognization of what they're doing and how they're doing it. And then when they become the age of puberty, now try to throw everything upon their shoulders at once. That would be difficult for them to handle, as it would be difficult for anyone to handle, but how much more so a child? So it is incumbent that bit by bit we rear them and we teach them from when they're little, so that this is the earliest memory that they have, is that they were acting in a good manner. They were acting as a Muslim should act. We should begin to teach them that from when they can learn and understand. As the ulama, they explain that as soon as the child is able to talk, then we should be teaching them at that point. This is when it starts, that even before then it starts, even before then. But at this time, when the child is able to speak, then we should teach them the kalima, La ilaha illallah. Teach them how to say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Teach them the shahada from when they're able to speak. Why? Because the whole of their life, you want to acclimate them to being good. And this is what enters into rearing them in a proper manner. This is what enters into rearing them in a proper manner. Likewise with the covering. Likewise with the children having their pants above their ankles, so on and so forth. For the men, for the boys, having their pants above their ankles, so much so that the ulama, they say what? They say that which is, for lack of a better term, for that which is the dress code for the adults, then likewise the dress code for the children. So it is not for the children that they should be musbil and they should have their pants below their ankles for the boys, but the boys, even at an early age, should be taught that Muslim men, we don't wear our garments below our ankles, but our garments, they come up above our ankles. So they're acclimated to it. They know that this is their way. This is from what it means to be a good parent and to raise our children properly. And it is part of us as parents to do our best to raise our children in a manner that is appropriate, in a manner that is legislated. Now, when the children get big, and the angels are writing for them, and whatever decision they make. But we will be absolved if they choose to go down the wrong way. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of our children and guide them to that which is correct. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children and guide them to what He loves and that which He is pleased with. But if they decide to go the wrong way, well, then that's on them. We did our part in calling them and to raising them correctly, and we tried our best to show them what is right. But if they themselves choose something that is not correct, then that will solely be on them. We don't want to be a party, an accessory to anyone being misguided, especially our children. على كل حال, the great Allama, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Al-Abbari goes on and he says, وَإِذَا بَلَغَ 10 سِنِينَ تَأَكَّدَ أَمْرُهُ بِهَا وأدم على ذلك بالضرب غير مبرح. He said, and when they reach the age of 10, then we will reinforce that command, and that is by hitting them with a hitting that does not leave any type of marks, does not leave any type of bruising or anything like this, but a hitting so as to show them our displeasure. But it is not a hitting, to show them our displeasure for what they're doing and leaving off the prayer and not being serious about their prayer, but not a hitting that is intended to hurt them or to cause them pain, but as to show them that we are not pleased with what they're doing and what they're doing is not acceptable. So then we are to spank them lightly for leaving the prayer and not praying how they should be praying. Now I'm at the age of 10. And it says, according to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, murru abana'akum bis-salat lis-sabr, and command your children to pray when they are 7, to the end of the hadith. Sheikh Muhammad al-Man al-Jami al-Allama, he says, وَأَمْرُ الطِّفْلِ بِالصَّلَاةِ لِلسَّبْعِ is very important point I want us all to pay very close attention to. He says, and commanding the child to pray when they are 7, وَلَيْسَ مَعْنَا أَمْرَهُمْ أَن تَقُولُوا لَهُ صَلِّ بَسْ. He says it's not meant that we say to them, hey, pray, and that's it. That when they reach the age of 7, we look at them and we say, hey, pray. Then that's it. He says, he said, this is not what is intended. He said, يَلْزَمُ مِنْ الْأَمْرُ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ أَنْ نَأْمُرَ أَطْفَالُنَا بِالصَّلَاةِ أي نُعَلِّمُهُمْ الصَّلَاةِ. He said that it is incumbent and necessary that the command of the Prophet, the command of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to command our children to pray when they are 7, he said this means that we have to teach them how to pray. We have to teach them the salah. Now, the Shaykh, he says, إِلَّا وَإِلَّا فَكَوْنُكَ تَقُولُ لِلطِّفْلِ الَّذِي يَلْعَبُ عِنْدَ الْبَابِ اذْهَبْ لِلْمَسْجِدِ صَلِّ. He said, because if not, the mere fact of you saying to a child who's playing in front of the door, get up and go to the masjid and pray. فَأَنْتَ لَا, he says, the Shaykh, he says, وَأَنْتَ لَا عَلَمْتَهُ وَأَنْتَ لَا عَلَمْتَهُ الطَّهَارَةَ وَلَا عَلَّمْتَهُ كَيْفَ يُصَلِّي لَا تَخْرُجُ مِنَ الْعُهْدَةِ إنما تخرج من العهدة إذا علمته الطهارة ثم قلت له صلي. نعم. The Shaykh, he says, you just saying to a child who's playing in front of the door, hey, get up and go to the masjid and pray. The Shaykh, he says that this will not be fulfilling the command of the Prophet ﷺ, that you will say to them, just get up and go and pray, but you have not taught them how to pray. You have not taught them about tahara. Because what? Miftahu salat, al-tahara. Al-tahara, miftahu salat. The tahara, wudu, being a state of purity, this is the key to the prayer. Now, so if we're going to command our children to pray, then we have to teach them how to make wudu. We have to teach them about tahara. Now, we have to teach them about purity and how to make the wudu. The Shaykh says, if you didn't teach them how to make tahara, if you didn't teach them how to pray, he said, then you will not have fulfilled the trust. You will not have fulfilled the trust. But rather, the only way that you'll be able to fulfill that trust is if you teach them exactly how to make the wudu, you teach them about tahara, and you teach them how to pray. Then at that point, you would have fulfilled and implement the command of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Shaykh says, وَأَمَّا تَسَاهُلْ الْكَثِيرَ. He said, وَأَمَّا تَسَاهُلْ الْكَثِيرَ مِنَ النَّاسِ فَقَدْ يَحْمَلُونَ يعني طفله إلى المسجد إما للسبع أو دون السبع على غير الطهارة وبدون معرفة للصلاة ويوقفوا في الصف فَيُعْتَبِرُ هَذَا الصَّفْ مَقْطُوعًا. The Shaykh, he says, but many of the people, you find that they are very negligent. They're very negligent. That they would take their child, yeah, وَقَدْ يَحْمَلُ طِفْلَهُ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ. They would take their child with them to the masjid. Maybe he's 7 years old, or maybe he's younger than 7 years old. A child who is not, he does not have wudu. He's not upon tahara. It may be the fact that the child, likewise, he does not know how to pray. And then they take that child and they put that child to stand next to them inside of the row. This is a very grievous mistake that is widespread. You find people coming and you'll see them. The man, he come to the masjid and he put his child there, make his child stand in a row, and the child does not have wudu. It could be a little girl child, she's in the row and no wudu, yani, have a pamper on, yani, to the end of it. The Shaykh, he says, when you do that, when you put a child without wudu inside of the row, now, he said, then that row is considered to be broken. هذا الصف مقطوعا. This row is broken. بوقوف هذا الطفل في الصف. Because this child is standing in the صف. Because this child is standing in the row and he don't have wudu. He don't have wudu. Many of the time, the child is so little, he's not even praying. He's just sitting there or he's playing around. Now, then this constitutes a break in the row. لأنه غير مصلي. Because he's not praying. نعم. وينطبق على هذا الشخص قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, and upon this man, then it could be applied, the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is why we say this is a grievous mistake, and we have to be careful and be mindful of the likes of this. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, من وصل الصف وصله الله ومن قطع الصف قطعه الله. That whoever joins the row, then inshallah, they'll be joined. Allah will join them, or for lack of a better term in a translation, whoever joins the row, they will join. Be joined with Allah, and whoever breaks the row, then he'll be disconnected from Allah. Whoever breaks the row, then he'll be disconnected from Allah. Now, whoever joins the row, he'll be connected to Allah, and whoever breaks the row, he will be disconnected from Allah. Now, so this is something that is serious, and this is what the ulama, they mentioned al-jaza min jins al-amal, that the action or that the reward will be appropriate to the action, or the punishment will be appropriate to the action, depending upon the context and that which is being spoken about. فَتَحْمِلُ طِفْلًا لَا يَعْقِلُ الصَّلَاةِ. He says, so they bring a child who does not have the intellectual capacity for the prayer. They don't have the mental maturity for the prayer. وَيُوقِفُ فِي الصَّفِّ الْأَوَّلِ. And they'll bring him and they have him standing in the first row. خَلْفِ الْإِمَامِ معك. He's standing in the first row with you behind the Imam. وَالنَّاسِ تَسْكُتُ مُجَامَلَةً وَهُوَ لَيْسَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ. He said, and the people, they'll be quiet. They'll be quiet what? Just as an appeasement and a flatterization for this individual. They don't want to say nothing. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to start no problems. So the people, they don't say nothing. So you can't use as a proof and say, but I've been doing this for years and no one has ever said anything. Most cases, people are not going to say anything. Now, they're gonna turn a blind eye to it. But this is not something that is correct. It's something we should be very cautious about. رُبَّمَا لَيْسَ عَلَى الطَّهَارَةِ. He said the kid, he may not be upon tahara. The Shaykh, he says, حَتَّى فِي بَدَنِهِ. He said even, meaning he's not upon tahara, he don't have wudu, but he might even have najasa on his physical person. He might even have impurities on his physical person. لأنك أخذته من أمام البيت قبل أن تعلمه الطهارة والصلاة. هذا تصرف خطأ. The Shaykh, he says he may even have on himself things that are impure. Now, impurities. He said, why is this? He said, because you took him from in front of the house. You just walked by, you took him from in front of the house without teaching him, before you taught him how to make wudu, and before you taught him how to pray. The Shaykh, he says, in this action, this is not correct. this is wrong. This type of action and these type of things, then this is wrong. The Shaykh, he says, فَالْوَاجِب, so what is wajib? And تُعَلِّمَهُ فِي الْبَيْتِ كَيْفَ يَتَطَهَّرْ وَكَيْفَ يُصَلِّي. He says, so what is wajib is that you teach him in the house how to pray or how to make wudu. You teach him in the house about tahara, and you teach him when he's in the house how he is to pray, how to pray. And this is in general, ya ikhwa, ya ma'ashar al-ikhwa, this is in general, that when it comes to the masjid, we should teach our children from inside the house the proper way they are to be in the masjid. We should teach our children from when they in the house how they are to be in the masjid. Now, and of course, at the head of this is we teach them how to make wudu. We teach them how to pray. We teach them what to say in the prayer, the movements of the prayer, and so on and so forth. We teach them how they should act in the masjid. But what we see from a lot of parents as it relates to the neglect, then this is not proper. They will leave their children to be reared by the television, to be reared by YouTube, to be reared by whatever, wa'iyadu billah, and then they bring the child to the masjid, and a child starts acting up because he don't know, he was never taught. She doesn't know, she was never taught. The parent gets embarrassed now because the child is acting a fool in the masjid, and now they want to be harsh with the child. Now they want to reprimand the child. Now they want to put the child in timeout, and so on and so forth. When the reality of it is that child acting in that manner, then that's the fault of the parent, because the parent did not train that child. The parent did not teach that child prior to coming to the masjid the mannerism that they ought to be in the masjid. How to sit still in the masjid. How to not disturb people when they're praying in the masjid. How not to walk in front of people when they're praying, and so on and so forth. These are lessons that we have to teach our children in the home. Now, if we try to teach them in the home and the child forgets, because it's a child and children forget, then we should be easy with the child, take into account their age, that they forgot their child, and then at this point we remind them. Remember what I told you in the house about how you don't walk in front of people. You remember this, you remember that. You remember I told you don't make noise, you don't disturb people, and so on and so forth. Now it's a reminder. Now, but to leave off this lesson in totality and now get to the masjid and want to be harsh with the child because the child is acting out in ways in which they don't know they should act, then this is not correct. This is the fault on the parent. This is a shame on the parent. This is not to be on the child, because it's a child and children do what children do. So this is something that is very important, that we have to rear our children, and we have to make an effort to rearing our children how to pray. And this is also an encouragement for those who are responsible to make sure that there are lessons and to make sure there are classes that are offered and available, so that the children of a particular district or a particular who attend a particular masjid, then they can be taught the likes of these things with other children if need be, which is an aid and assistance to the parents, because they're able to reinforce and to go over these things. And likewise in the house. And these are certain things that are very good, that we have to make sure are essential aspects of each and every one of our communities, from teaching the children how to pray, teaching the children of tahara, teaching the children the Quran, having tahfidh al-Quran, Quran memorization programs in schools, and so on and so forth. These are all aspirations that we should all be aspiring for each and every one of our communities, not just we just inspire for a masjid and that's it. The masjid is empty, except for on Jumu'ah and except for a prayer here and there. No, but that the masjid is a place that is vibrant, is always, people are always making an ibadah therein. There are always classes and lessons and learning therein, and so on and so forth. These are dreams and aspirations that we should be striving to attain and to reach, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. Al-Allama Muhammad Aman al-Jami, he says, فَإِذَا بَلَغَ الطِّفْلُ 10 سِنِينَ, he said, when a child reaches 10 years of age, وَحَصُلَ مِنْهُ النَّوْعُ مِنْ عَدَمِ الْإِمْتِثَالِ, he said, and there comes for him something from not implementing and then performing as relates to the salah and performing of salah. Naam. وَتَمَرُّد, and it comes from him some type of isyan, it comes from some type of disobedience as relates to this. And يَضْرِبُ ضَرْبًا تَأْدِيب, then we are to hit them with a hitting to teach them, not we trying to cause them pain or inflict bodily physical pain upon them, no, but as to teach them, ta'deeb, so as to teach them, and that what they're doing is not right, wa takhweef, and to scare them, and to scare them. Naam, hatta yusalli, to scare them and to teach them what is correct, and so that they know the importance of the prayer, and until they pray. مع محافظة عليه, so that they are taught to be steady upon the prayer. وفي هذا السن, and at this age of 10, يفرق بينهم في المضاجع كل الطفل ينام منفردا وهكذا أدب الإسلام. He says, and at this age we separate their beds so that every child, they sleep by themselves, and this is the Islamic mannerisms. This is the Islamic mannerisms. And these are things, again, that we have to reinforce into our children so that they are reared properly, they are reared on the mannerisms and the morals of Islam, so that their quote-unquote moral compass, for lack of a better term, is tuned to the Islamic moral compass, and they're not influenced by the society that we are in. Wa'iyadu billah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us from the ill effects of this society in which that we are living in here in America. Then the Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he goes on to mention the next condition, the fourth condition. ولكن نتوقف هنا فنكتفي بهذا القدر، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.